From the Watchbox Studios, this is On Point on Watchbox with Cynthia Hardy.
Good morning. Welcome to On Point on Watchbox. We want to thank you for tuning into the show every week, and also invite you to tune into the radio show On Point with Cynthia Hardy, heard every Sunday evening, 6 p.m. on 101.3 The Big DM. Today on Point on Watch, the 2012 GOP National Convention and the expected impact on South Carolina. The 2012 Republican National Convention gets underway in Tampa tomorrow, where Mitt Romney is expected to become the Republican presidential nominee and Paul Ryan his vice presidential running mate. South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley has been tapped as one of the GOP stars to speak at the convention. So what does the party need to do to take back the White House in November? Right now, most polls show President Obama leading Romney by a narrow margin, but several recent miscues and with the GOP have dominated the news lately, and Republicans are heading to the convention, so there'll be lots of chatter about those too. Today on Point on Watch, we have asked a host of standouts to be with us as we look ahead to the 2012 GOP National Convention and its expected impact on South Carolina. Brian McConkey seated here with me, and Brian, this is a very exciting time.
Yeah, I think even for people who aren't into politics as much as the rest of us are, I think they finally start paying attention now, because this is where the next 2 months or a month and a half, as it were, is really going to gear up. And we had a behind-the-scenes media tour of the Democratic National Convention just the other day, so people are starting to pay attention a little bit more now, and it really gets into full swing when the RNC begins in just a day.
Well, all of my GOP friends are very excited about what's happening in Tampa, Florida, and the prospect of course, of hearing our governor speak and of seeing all of the I call them GOP stars, coming through.
We have our own GOP stars right here.
Yeah, speaking of, Nathan Ballentine, my representative from District 71.
Thank you, Cynthia. Happy to be here anytime.
Oh, absolutely happy to have you here, as we are Wesley Donahue with Donahue Direct. And Wesley is making quite a name for himself nationally,
yes,
he
is.
Brian.
He's on the road quite a bit.
Yes, you are. And,
I don't know how he found the time to be with us.
You're not just a Republican strategist in South Carolina, you're becoming a national strategist as well. So congratulations on your success.
Thank you for that.
Well, let's get right on into it. This convention, Brian, seems to garner a lot more excitement than 2008. Is that just me saying that, guys? Nathan?
No, I think you're right. I mean, certainly as Brian mentioned, to those that follow politics or are in politics, this is a Super Bowl, if you will. But I think even just the casual observer, it's an exciting time. There's been a lot of money spent on media, but I think it presents really, and I know this sounds like hyperbole because you hear this with every election, but I think this is truly the biggest election around. There couldn't be a clearer difference in how the two top of the ticket individuals want to lead the country. And so voters need to be paying attention so that when they go on in November, they're making the right choice for what they think is best for America.
And what Representative Ballentine says is right, because there are two different ideologies that are being advanced right now. And so people are kind of deciding how they want to line up.
Well, I think everyone knows what the rallying cry is going to be, though, is job creation and the economy. And there are different approaches to how you do that, but that is going to be the bottom line here and will be the deciding factor. Wouldn't you agree, Russ?
Yeah, I would, but you say there's two competing ideologies, and I would say there's more than that, and that's the reason why this is so hot, because since 2008, you've really seen the rise of the Tea Party, you've seen the rise of these more ultra-conservative Republicans. So this time, you've had a lot more heated political environment in the last 4 years, and going into the 2012 convention, you got a lot more heated rhetoric, a lot more fighting, also a lot more fun for those of us involved in it.
I imagine so. And as we talk about our governor speaking at the convention, you, of course, were her seatmate during the time that she was in the General Assembly, and then you guys were there together. So what do you think this means as we watch her from afar deliver her speech?
Well, I think it's a big honor, not just for Governor Haley, but for our state. Wes can tell you in politics, I mean, South Carolina's a pretty red state. Once we normally go through our primary, a lot of people forget about South Carolina. But I think it says a lot with how Governor Romney views Governor Haley and the respect he has for her, to give her that honor of a speaking spot. She's been an absolute incredible surrogate for him in several battleground states and throughout the country. And a lot of people like the message that she's been delivering, and that, as Brian mentioned, is about jobs and also limited government.
How did she get so popular so fast?
Well, I'll tell you this. You know, you said I've been traveling a lot nationally, and I think I've been here in Columbia in my own bed like 3 nights in the past month. But as I go around the country, she's an even bigger rock star than she is here in South Carolina. She's a woman. She's well-spoken. She's ultra-conservative. She's a minority. And the reason she, you know, to answer your question, she's getting stuff done. She's actually creating jobs here in South Carolina. She's getting some hardcore reforms passed and through the General Assembly by working with the General Assembly. So she's this rock star up-and-comer at a national level, and it's because she's doing amazing things right here in the Palmetto State.
Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, well, obviously it means quite a bit to have your governor speaking on such a large stage, but I don't think there's any question about how this state votes. This is not going to be any type of key battleground state at any point, I think, in the near future, or am I wrong?
A lot of this is about the future of the Republican Party, and they see Nikki Haley as the future. But the other thing, she's a woman and she's a minority, and those are national things. You know, this is a way of looking and saying we want women, we want minorities.
Yeah, I mean, I would be very surprised. I mean, I'm almost shocked if Governor Romney doesn't carry the state.
Sure.
You know, certainly we know he didn't in the primary, and that goes back to what Wes had mentioned earlier, the different factions in the Republican Party. I mean, we sometimes fight more so with us as Republicans than we do with the Democrats across the aisle. But there's no doubt. I know Karl Rove said it's a toss-up. You know, I don't know if maybe he's looking at his personal pocketbook to get some money to come down here and help out some consultants. I don't know, but I'd agree with Brian. If this state doesn't go red, that's really going to surprise, I think, the country.
We're going to go to break now. We come back, we're going to talk about what you all anticipate, because you both are attending the National Convention for the first time, you as a delegate.
Correct.
So that should be very, very exciting. And we also want to talk about some of the factions that you all mentioned within the party and how those things will play out. You guys stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You're watching On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own WatchBox.
Welcome back to On Point on WatchBox. We are talking about the 2012 GOP National Convention, the expected impact on South Carolina. We've got our own GOP standouts right here on the couch with us. Nathan Ballentine, District 71, Richland and Lexington counties, and Wesley Donahue, Republican strategist, and we're delighted to have you. Before we went to break, we teased the fact that we wanted to talk about, you guys have, well, the presence of the Tea Party is a little different in 2012 than it was in 2008. And I also want to begin the conversation. Some of the party faithfuls have questioned the level of conservatism of Mitt Romney. And what impact do you think that will have on the way things play out in Tampa?
Listen, there's Ron Paul and there's everybody else. And if you're not Ron Paul, then you're not conservative enough to a lot of these Tea Partiers. And I think that's the issue with Mitt Romney. The conservatives are going to rally around one cause, not one man. And that one cause right now is getting President Obama out of office and replacing him with a Republican. So the Tea Partiers can talk all this smack all they want about Mitt Romney, but in the grand scheme of things, they're coming over to our side, and it's going to be fine.
And it does seem that of late, there's been a lot of rallying around Mitt Romney as we lead into the convention.
There is, and I think it'll probably pick up even more after we get through this convention. You would imagine, because there's going to be a lot of messages shared, there's going to be a lot of rhetoric shared, there's going to be a lot of rallying cries thrown out there. And what are you expecting to see down there? What do you think is going to happen to kind of energize that voting base and even energize the Tea Party, as Wes said, to jump onto that side of the vote?
Well, it's interesting. It's my first convention. I'm an alternate delegate technically, and
but you're still a delegate.
Enough. Yeah, I'll be down there. That's good. You know, when you have a Republican primary, that's when it seems like everybody and their brother is trying to go as far right as they can. You know, and then you got to go to the general election, and then the discussion is, can we win as Republicans being as far right as possible in a general election? What you're going to see down in Tampa, I believe, is you're going to see a unity of the Republican Party. When we go through primaries, it's what we don't like. It's friend against friend, and you're just beating each other up constantly, and you hear all that, I'm not supporting so-and-so. Look, I wasn't a McCain guy last time around. I was Romney. But did I stay at home? No. I went out there. Did I tell people to go vote? Yes. Didn't turn out how we wanted. But this year, I think everybody understands, again, the two vast differences. There, no matter how moderate or liberal they try to paint out Governor Romney to be, he's still way to the right of the current president. And I think that's the end of the day discussion. You know, you might not have been a super fan, but you want to think of the country, and you're going to take what you got at the top of the ticket, especially with Paul Ryan. We can talk about that later. I think it's an excellent pick.
Yeah, I can't agree enough. That's absolutely correct. I mean, Mitt Romney is ultra-conservative, but, you know, those Paul folks are always going to say this. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be Rand Paul, Ron Paul's son, and you're not going to be as good as Ron Paul. It's the way it is.
And that's why, you know, as an elected official, I mean, it's unbelievable where, you know, I can agree with somebody 80% of the time, and they're going to just, no, it's that 20% they focus on that just kills you.
Gotcha.
And you're like, hold on, we have way much more in common than we do apart.
That's right.
Well, you guys, do you feel as if the Tea Party influence has kind of made it difficult for any kind of cooperative spirit to happen between the parties, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party? Because oftentimes you hear that the Tea Party is so right that it makes it very difficult to reach across the aisle to work together on anything, because if you're seen with the other side, then you're seen as not conservative enough.
That's true, but we can't just sit here and put the blame single-handedly in the Tea Party's laps. I mean, the left has their extremists too. You know, you see these picketers, or what were you calling the occupiers, sorry. The occupiers going out there and trying to drive the left to the far left. So both the right and the left have their extremes that try to drag everybody apart. And listen, and there is a problem in American politics and in South Carolina politics, and we are getting more extreme, and less conversation is happening, and less is getting done almost in every state and at the federal level, and it is a big issue.
Yeah, and to throw a cliche out there, you know, we can disagree without being disagreeable, but people forget that in politics. You know, I try not to be Mr. Hyper-partisan. I think most people know I'm a very conservative Republican, but at the same time, I try not to sling arrows at my colleagues who are across the aisle from me, because I understand that while we don't see eye to eye, that we can at least find some sort of common ground. In a bill, when a bill's drafted, and I don't want to get on the subject here, but when a bill is drafted, it's going to take some changes throughout the whole process. Rarely do you agree with the bill 100% of the time. So find the stuff that you can agree with. Don't give up on principle or anything that important, but you can make some concessions, if you will. And that's a word that people don't like to hear in politics, because you're losing if you're making a concession, but you got to do it. You have to govern. You have to be an elected official. That's what you were selected to do.
And you mentioned Paul Ryan and the selection of him as the vice president. And I remember in the early days after that pick, there were some that said that Mitt Romney's now going to live in his shadow, because he was a very popular person that some people even wanted to push towards the White House.
Sure.
Will he have a problem living in his shadow? Or do you just think it's a solid team?
I think that's a good question.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't know if you read, there was a great New York Times article last week about how these two are really good friends who for years have emailed back and forth about issues and policy. These guys will work in tandem and hand in hand because they are good friends. I mean, Mitt Romney was helping him with some of the Paul Ryan budget stuff, and when Romney was in office, he was emailing Paul Ryan, or governor, emailing Paul Ryan, said, "Hey man, what do you think about this?" And that's the kind of teammates we need. And I don't think we see that in the White House right now with President Obama and Vice President Biden. I don't think you see that friendship of working together to get things done. And I think that's what we need in policy or in politics right now.
But I do think, though, with Paul Ryan coming on board, there's a level of excitement that Mitt Romney didn't seem to garner. And it may be because he's younger, maybe because he's taller, I don't know.
Well, and that's what I think is, there's several things wrong with politics, but charisma really shouldn't be what people are voting off of. And
they do.
And exactly. And I'll admit, I've been I've been a Governor Romney fan, for the past 8 years. And one of the things I told him before he came to my house earlier last year in Chapin, as I said, look, you got to loosen up a little bit. You got to grip and grin, and a lot.
You told him that, Nathan?
Yeah, and you got to be. It's a people business, but he's very policy oriented, obviously, and I think the Paul Ryan pick was very gutsy. I'll never be in a position to make such a decision, but I thought it was gutsy because it wasn't really charisma, although apparently the ladies I think find Paul Ryan attractive. But he's a very intelligent individual on policy, and the issues that he's not afraid to attack are some scary issues in a general election. And I think we're doubling down on, we're serious about what we're talking about doing when we get to Washington. And so people are going to have that choice. Okay, I hear what they're talking about, and I know what we've had. And I think when your argument is, well, it could have been worse, that doesn't get you the right to get another 4 years leading our country, personally. But I'm obviously biased.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. This I tweeted, this wasn't a sexy pick, this was a policy pick, and I had a bunch of women email back, no, this was a sexy pick. Listen, he didn't pick the man because of his six-pack, all right? He picked the man because this is the man who literally wrote his own budget and submitted it to Congress. This is one of the smartest, most policy-oriented men in Congress or in the U.S. Senate, and it was a smart policy pick. We need more policy wonks when we're in all this trouble. People that understand the ins and outs of the budget, spending, debt, and the economic crisis we're in.
Guys, thank you. We're out of time for this segment. We're going to ask you to stick around, Nathan. I know you got to go, but I tell you what, travel safely.
Thank you.
And we'll be keeping an eye, and we might catch you a picture of you in the crowd.
All right, sounds good.
You guys, there have been a few major missteps recently involving high-profile Republicans. How are these distractions expected to affect the GOP national convention? You guys stay tuned. We're going to talk about it.